Ahlan wa sahlan. Right now I want to talk with you about hal clauses. Hal means like a state or a circumstance. You probably recognize that word from the formal Arabic greeting, كيف الحال? We're literally saying, how is your state, right? So hal clauses are a construction that we can use to describe the state of a subject while they're performing another action. How an action was undertaken. We encounter hal clauses all the time in Arabic, especially for narration of events. In English, there are a couple of ways we can express this idea. We can use a gerund. We could say something like, I walked the streets looking for my cat. Or we often use a preposition like with, or when, or while, like I played basketball when I was in high school, or she walked into the office with the letter in her hand, things like that. In Arabic, we express these ideas a lot of the time using hal clauses. And there are three ways that I'd like to talk about. First is a nominal sentence beginning with واو and a pronoun. So الجملة الاسمية التي تبدأ بواو والضمير. We can also use a regular present tense verb, a فعل مضارع, and we can use اسم الفاعل or اسم المفعول in the منصوب. Now that third option here, there's actually a separate video on that you can go and check out. So I'm going to focus on the other two in this video. There are a couple more ways, but these are what I'm going to focus on right now because they're really simple, really useful ways to lengthen an idea. So if we want to construct a hal clause with a wow and a pronoun, the pronoun can be a subject pronoun or it can be a possessive pronoun attached to a different noun or preposition. So let's take a couple of examples. If we wanted to say, for example, he got dressed as he watched the news, or he got dressed while watching the news, we could say لبس ملابسه, and then we would just take a wow plus the huwa for him, وهو يشاهد الأخبار. Notice that if you, like me, think in English a lot of the time and are tempted to sort of back translate what we're working on into English, that wah, we know that wah sometimes means and, but and doesn't really fit with the idea of this sentence. If we translated it very literally, we would be saying something like, he put on his clothes and he watches the news. We need to be able to step outside of that literal translation box a little bit for this sentence to make sense. Or if I wanted to say, I graduated from college when I was 22 years old, we could say in Arabic, تخرجت من الجامعة وأنا في الثانية والعشرين من عمري. Literally something like, and I am in my 22nd year. Once again, in order to get that when I was 22 meaning, we have to not think very literally in English, right? The wow is just a connector of these two ideas. It's putting them temporally right next to each other. As I said, we don't always need a subject pronoun like ana or huwa. We can also use a possessive pronoun. For example, if we wanted to say they went to the party with their friend Nadia, we could say ذهبوا إلى الحفلة ومعهم صديقتهم Nadia. Now, as I said, the other way that I want to talk about that we can create a hal clause is using a regular old present tense verb. In a case like this, we aren't going to have anything between the first clause and the second clause. We're just going to begin a jumla fa'liya with a present tense verb. So, خرجوا إلى الشوارع, they went into the streets demanding their rights, let's say. In a case like that, we could also say خرجوا إلى الشوارع يطالبون بحقوقهم. Now here we have a third person plural past tense verb, and the same people who are doing the going into the streets are doing the demanding. So, oops, missed it out here. يطالبون is conjugated in the third person plural, just like خرجوا. They went into the streets, they demand their rights, is how it literally reads in English. But once again, we can't get too literal here. We have to understand that this يطالبون just refers to an event that was happening in the past and that was happening concurrently with the action of that first verb. They went into the streets demanding their rights, or while demanding their rights, something like that. Or we could say, he sat by the telephone thinking about what to say. جلس بجانب التليفون, and then we just use a present tense verb. And since جلس is conjugated for هو in the past tense, يفكر, that verb is going to be conjugated for هو too. يفكر فيما سيقول, thinking about what to say, or literally sort of thinking about what he will say. It, we had that pronoun there. But the important thing, again, is that يفكر, the thinking was happening at the same time as the sitting. Those two actions are concurrent. You may be thinking, wait a minute, some of these sentences could go either way, and you'd be absolutely right. There's no reason that we can't make a had clause with the wow and the pronoun here. جلس بجانب التليفون وهو يفكر فيما يقوله. The difference is mostly just stylistic. It depends on which rhythm, which rhetorical style you wish to choose. Often we can get away with either one. I will mention that with this third version, we tend to use the ism fa'il or ism maf'ul pattern, which again you can watch another video about, for actions that are more stative, that have to do with states of being. So if we wanted to say something like, he left the house wearing a shirt, or wearing a new shirt, let's say, wearing is not the most active verb. It's more a state of being. Either you're wearing the shirt or you're not wearing the shirt. So while technically it would be possible to say something like ترك البيت وهو يلبس قميصه الجديد. There's nothing grammatically incorrect about that, but because يلبس isn't the most active verb, it sounds a little bit odd. Like he's really deliberately, actively, consciously wearing that shirt, which isn't the normal sense of that particular verb. So in cases like that, when we're talking about wearing or sleeping or something along those lines, we might prefer option 3. So we could say لابسا instead. Now in terms of how we get there, that's a multi-step process. So if you're curious, you can go watch the separate video on using ism al-fa'il and ism al-maf'ul in hal clauses. But all three of these ways are really central to narration in Arabic, and if you want to express concurrent ideas and actions, this is a great way to get that message across.